Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. We are returning for our second session on the character posters posted by Lord of the Rings on Prime yesterday. It's what is it, Friday the 4th of February here today. These were posted yesterday. We had a fun discussion yesterday looking through a bunch of them. We got a little bit more than halfway through, so we're going to be talking about the rest of them here today. And then we're going to be see what kind of sort of bigger picture, things we can see and where we're going here. In particular, Maggie, what I want to kind of come back to at the end is thinking about what this kind of suggests, big picture. I want to make sure we're not, it's easy to get, when looking at stuff like this, right, to get caught up in the details, and the details are a lot of fun, but I want to be there's like a couple different levels I want to back up and look at, right? One level is thinking about these pictures as a group, right? Thinking with all of them, what does this tell us about the world of Middle Earth that they're building, right, in this series? And then I want to step even one step further back and see, what does this tell us about how Amazon is thinking about this world of Middle Earth that they're building? And I know
Exactly.
that's,
Like,
yeah,
yeah, I feel like we're in two parts of like the story and the characters and the arcs that we're going to get in terms of like an adaptation, but also
yes,
just like the process, how they're doing this
yes,
and have they learned? We're not sure yet.
right,
We're not
exactly.
convinced yet.
Exactly. So we were going through basically in Twitter order. We'll think about the sequencing also a little bit later on when we're drawing more conclusions. But we had just finished with this lady with the dirty hands and the shawl, and we're up to this one. Now, this is interesting because so the berries are obviously the first interesting thing. And what I was particularly interested in here is that I noticed when you look at the official description, and hey, look, here's the descriptive text right here. Close up of someone's small childlike hands. So it's interesting that they give us that scale, which we don't really have otherwise, right? And then in the left hand, they are holding what looks like blackberries, and their right hand is on the strap of a burlap bag. What look like blackberries is the part of the description that I found most interesting. It doesn't say they're blackberries, right? It says that they look like blackberries, which is interesting. So, Hobbit child, is that what we're supposed to be getting here?
I mean, certainly it's the first like real item, that and the acorns, what we have for scale. So I feel like
Right.
it's very purposeful that these are supposed to be ginormous
Yes.
things in tiny hands.
Yes. Yeah. It does look like a child's hands, and probably not just a human child's hands,
Right.
because the scale does not look right for a human child.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the hands, those do not look like the hands of a 2-year-old, is what I'm saying. Like, a 2 or a 3-year-old might hold blackberries in her hand and look like that, right? But those are not the hands of a 2-year-old. So I think probably Hobbit child is what we're getting here. Of course, they've maintained some plausible deniability about the blackberries in saying that they look like, I didn't promise that they were blackberries. Maybe this is supposed to be some special berry, which merely is in the blackberry family, right? But yeah, I think likely Hobbit child. And burlap bag, we see the burlap bag. It's interesting because actually I would have made a mistake. I can see more closely now, looking at this more carefully, how that is a braided twine strap, right, that goes to that burlap bag. But at first, with the direction it's coming down and the way the hand is holding it, I thought it was a braid. I thought it was hair.
I still think it's hair. I thought it was their hair was woven into the bag. No?
I mean, they say it's a strap. Which again, I saw this and I'm like, oh, somebody with a long braid. And then I'm like, no, okay, I guess it's a strap. And they say it's a strap, and it looks like it's actually woven in, or like it's involved there in the top of the burlap burlap
And it
sack.
really looks like human hair. You know, it's so
Right.
pliable. It's not that stiff horse hair.
Right. Yeah,
Huh.
it could. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't
I suppose it could
know.
be horsehair, but it just
Could be
looks really
horsehair. Yeah.
flexible.
Yeah, maybe.
Hmm.
But uh, presumably, the burlap bag is for blackberries. That, like, this is not only a working person. This is a working person in the middle of working, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't think we saw. But who else had the? Who else that we were looking at had the real working class? We had of course, the shawl lady who has field workers' hands as well, as far as the dirt is concerned. But no, yeah, no. And other than the
Oh, the
grubby
fisher.
hands,
Oh, I was gonna say the fisherman, but no, his hands are really clean.
yes. Oh, you mean the sailor dude?
The
This
sailor
guy.
dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sailor dude's hands are clean, which again suggests to me both. I mean, your hands are less likely to be covered with dirt on a ship because no dirt, but I mean no soil. I mean to say, I'm not saying ships are not dirty at all. I'm just saying no
Not of the
soil,
earth.
not of the earth. But anyway, like I said, the cleanness of his hands is actually one of the things that suggests to me I'm setting off on I'm heading to the boat, right, to set off on the journey. So yeah, this is the other working class hands person who seems to be in the middle of working, right? Having a burlap sack to collect berries in. So, and that's I'm not sure what to do. It could very well just be a sort of bucolic countryside child picking berries in a bag for
Could
self or for parent, right? You know, for the family pie or whatever. It could be working as part of a farm. I mean, we were talking about slavery questions and things with the chain around the neck of what looked like the other hobbit was making me wonder in that direction. But
that hobbit was the map holder, wasn't he? So that wasn't any kind of a task. That was very much a adventurer.
right.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah,
Not much more to go off of there. I
not
think
much more to go off of here.
the clothing is really nondescript. It doesn't scream Hobbit to me. You know, there's a lot of key elements of a Hobbit outfit, like the linen shirt and the jacket and the breeches, that I think the vest that we've kind of come to expect. And this doesn't really scream that, but it
No,
doesn't
it
mean that it's not
doesn't.
Hobbit either.
It doesn't, but it's another thing. One of the things that it makes me think of, the dirt, the dirt on not only the hands, but this is not just somebody whose hands are dirty because they've just been doing stuff in the dirt. These are the hands and arms of somebody who bathes irregularly, right? And Peter Jackson's hobbits do not look like they bathe irregularly, by and large. Like, they're pretty, even though, he did a good job of showing rustic peasant hobbits, they don't look dirty in this way, again, they look like they bathe regularly, and this person does not look like he or she, I'm guessing she, bathes regularly, but I don't know if I'm guessing she because it looks like a rough skirt there, but yeah. Anyway, it's yeah. Sorry. It sounds like my some kind of Twitch is having some kind of issue with our stream. Oh dear.
Ooh.
Oh well. Yeah. Kendall is pointing out, of course, that they even have a there's the bath song, right, that we get from the hobbits in the book. In fact, if I'm recalling correctly, isn't it called Bilbo's favorite bath song? Like, there are of
But there are
the
multiples.
yes
Yeah.
of the Bath song oeuvre, right, of Bilbo's, this is his favorite, which does certainly suggest that bathing is a thing. And notice that the special treat that Mary has prepared for the end of their journey is not merely the fact that there is a bath, but that they won't have to start with a quarrel over baths, right? And even that line, we can't start life at Crick Hollow with a quarrel over baths, sort of suggests that obviously they're all going to want to take a bath and assume that they're going to take a bath, right? And that a quarrel is therefore likely to ensue. And so therefore I'm going to prevent it by acquiring 3 tubs, right? And having them all prepared with hot water. Anyway, it's very, that's a very telling kind of thing. So yes, I do agree. Tolkien's hobbits, at least those in Frodo and Merry and Pippin's line, does Sam bathe this regularly at home? Like, does Gaffer Gamgee take baths this often? I don't know. But I mean, Sam bathes with them as well. It's not like Sam doesn't bathe here, but we can't tell if it's a class thing necessarily. But anyway, point is,
we're also thousands of years before.
We're thousands of years before this.
Maybe they don't bathe as often. They didn't bathe as often in the Middle Ages, the medieval ages.
Bet they didn't have a clock on their mantelpiece here either. But anyway, so I definitely think that it's an interesting move. Like, the level of culture, rusticness, dirt, crudity of fabrics and things that they are putting on what look to be the hobbits. And this is making me wonder, going back for a second, is this a hobbit?
I mean, the only thing that's making us say that is the size, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no scale. There's nothing that we have for scale. I mean,
we just assume those berries are like blackberries, so therefore that's a tiny person. But they just said like blackberries.
Right. They may just have ginormous berries, exactly, in whatever part of Eriador we're in here.
I remember the first time I saw Marion berries in Oregon, and they were the size of my hand. And I was like, what is this magic? So who knows?
Right. Who knows? Maybe that's what's going on here. But I still think Hobbit is likely. But I do agree the style is and again, there's every reason to think the style. These are not Shire hobbits, right?
Right, these are not Shire hobbits.
This is millennia before, like more than one millennium before the Shire was founded.
And like you said last time, we can assume this isn't the same class of hobbits either. This is a working class hobbit.
No, yeah. I mean, it's very likely that the upper class Shire hobbit that doesn't exist. Like, that's, there's no reason to assume that that's a thing. And that even if perhaps the previous image, the shawl, older woman image, might be, somebody like Gollum's grandma and a matriarch among the hobbits, it's possible. But even then, there wouldn't necessarily be sort of civilized in the same way.
I've just spotted something I didn't notice before. If you go to the Instagram image and zoom in on the left side of it, there's a buckle that is shaped like a sun.
Ooh. Oh, yeah, that's a totally different artifact.
Right?
Huh. Okay, let's see.
And you got a little more sleeve on the right with a hole in it, so it's definitely working class, but that sun buckle is pretty interesting, and it looks like it's part of the bag.
Whoa. Why am I zooming backwards? Okay, I'm zooming backwards. I see. Okay. I can't zoom in. Oh, it's not letting me zoom on the picture. Oh, well. It's okay. I can live with it. Okay. The knobs, the knobby bits around the edge of that buckle are rounded.
rounded. Yeah.
which is unusual for a sun, but it's possible.
Very,
And it doesn't
very.
look like the other sunbursts that we saw were all pointy, right?
Raids.
Yeah, they were all pointy. Yeah. There's a design, but the design in the center of the sun all just looks like overlap woven, like basket weave almost kind of design in there.
But I presume it's like a brooch, where the fabric comes through and you stick a pin through. So I assume
maybe.
it's just the fabric of the bag.
Oh, yeah, that might be. That might be right. So it's just a hollow circle. Yeah. That's why it would look like overlap weaving, because it's actually woven. That could possibly be.
When I was looking at those little spheres, and I was like, "Ooh, are they the same as the beads on that shawl woman?" But I don't think they are.
No, I don't think so either. Those were dots, right? And these are just looks like
Spheres.
Yeah, like chased metal. Yeah.
It's a total tease, though, to only have that in the side of the Instagram image. Like, that feels purposeful.
Yeah, that's very tantalizing. Okay, if we go with the theory that the sunburst means Numenor, like we were kind of... I'm going to go back here. Actually, the Instagram will be just as well. So we were looking at a couple places here, and this rich dude, I feel stronger and stronger. This is a Numenorian dude. This is some rich and powerful Numenorian dude, the blue and gold guy, right? And this has the sunburst. So if this is a rich and powerful Numenorian dude, that would make this likely to be a Numenorian armor, and we were thinking that that it looked more Numenorian than Elvish, probably. But we got the sun all over the place here, and got those dragon wings that I still don't understand. Are those the primary sunbursts we were seeing? Right, I think those were the main places we were seeing suns. But if we assume that the suns are sunburst symbol is Numenorian, it does then, when I come back to our brooch here, I wonder what kind of links there are there, right? If there are, if we're seeing like the echoes of like a colony, essentially, right? Like part of colonial Numenorian territory, or the remnant of it, or the memory of it, or whatever. Yeah, I wonder. Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. Somebody was asking, do I think they're going to be droogs? Are there going to be Druidan, Wozes? There could be. We know they were there. We know they were in Numenor. And I'm going to tell you, it's just not on. I have a bunch of lists. I have like lists of things that I am really excited to see, that I'm very confident we will see. I have lists of things that like we'd better see, or I'm going to be really upset. And I have lists of things that like I have hopes and dreams of seeing, but I don't know if they will happen, but it'll make me really happy if we see them. And on that list are Druidine in Numenor. I totally want to see Druidine, or like Druidine leaving Numenor, like the bit where the Druidine are like, I'm getting out of here while the getting's good. Like, I want that. I totally want that. So yes, I was looking to see if we could see any Druidine in these images. I'm not at all confident that I'm seeing any, but yes, yeah. And yes, I'm watching the YouTube chat for those of you who are on. Sorry, Twitch seems to be having a moment. I don't know what's going on. We're streaming to Twitch. It's working for a minority of people, but for most it's not. I apologize on behalf of Twitch, though that's not my job, I suppose. But anyway, yeah, the Druidine were totally in Numenor, Kevin. It absolutely happened, watching Facebook chat too. So anyway, yeah, so let's it's definitely been in the back of my mind. But let's move on to the next one. And wait, we're doing Twitter order, so let's stay in Twitter order for now. Okay. I've been looking forward to this one. Okay. What?
Except I can't see your screen. Are we doing the green one with the guy holding?
Oh yeah, sorry, the green one with the dude. Yeah, the green with the dude. Cool. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, apologies.
All right.
All right. More dirty hands. Very dirty hands. Can't see his wrists and arms, so we can't be sure whether or not this is a non-bathing dude or whether this is I'm just in the middle of a dirty project dude. But given the state of his clothes, I think non-bathing is more likely. This seems a more thoroughly dirtied fellow. He's wearing a very rough cloak. Look at the edges of that cloak, right? Mm-hmm. Very rough. His clothing is... look, the cuffs of his, under tunic there are very dirty and worn, and though the fabric looks pretty good on his his over tunic there, and it looks like a tunic, and it does look like a dude. It does look like a guy. No, I'm using my two generic words. It does look like a man, a masculine person. I'm getting masculinity from this, but what in earth is that implement?
Well, the written description says some sort of farm equipment.
Primitive farm
what?
Implement of some sort.
I mean, the only thing I could think of was like a drill to like plant a seed, because it's kind of got a curve to it, but there's also that claw tied onto it. I don't know. This is... farming on the window.
Farm implement. Yeah, I agree. Lil Redhead points out that it seems to be adorned. I mean, that does seem decorative. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, it's possible that what is it? A tooth? The black tooth?
Or claw or a tooth. It says
claw or tooth. Oh, it does say it,
in the
doesn't
description.
A sharp claw. Except it's not sharp. It looks quite blunted, but that's okay. Yes.
And like a bead attached to it as well, and that pretty red rope that looks like it's woven with a few different things. Yeah, it looks very decorative.
Yeah. If he were holding it the other way around, I would say it would look like some kind of like ritual scepter or something like that, right? Both the direction holding it down, point down, or if it has a point, I don't know what it does at the bottom, and also the way that he's holding it in this like I'm churning butter posture, right, of his hands, makes it look like a tool, and possibly a digging tool of some sort. What do you think it is? A bone?
Bone was my first choice, because if you look at the handle, that doesn't look like wood. And then the further you go down the corkscrew bit, it really does look like a joint that's been carved. Like a hip or a femur,
Right.
But it doesn't look human either. But yeah, I think
no,
bone.
It certainly does not look human. But I think it is a bone, probably like a carved hip bone or something from some kind of animal. Is it a digging tool? Is it a kind of like... I don't know, some like for like tilling, like by hand, like tilling or turning the soil, or.
Well, there's lots of speculation online about wizard for this one as well. So it's like, well, maybe that is a staff, but we're supposed to believe that it's some sort of agricultural equipment. So this kind of got me thinking of like, ooh, what seeds are we planting for like the wizards are already here, but somehow hiding in plain sight and.
Maybe. So first of all, about wizards, people were pointing out that passage that I was neglecting yesterday about that Tolkien did allow for the possibility of the two blue wizards arriving earlier. Our wizards, Radagast, Gandalf, Saruman, the ones we're familiar with, he still said arrived later. I still say I'm not going to be any kind of shock if we see one or all three of them in this series.
I
But
also don't think Amazon's going to care that the wizards aren't there yet. If they want wizards, they'll bring them in.
no, exactly. I
Yeah.
think that the kind of collapse of that the kind of collapse of that timeline would be totally normal. But I I don't are people saying wizard just because part of it looks kind of like a staff? I mean, I don't see wizard at all here. I'm not saying that I guess I don't see any reason to doubt them when they tell me it's a farming implement.
Yeah.
But apart from that, even if it's not a farming implement, it's not a staff. I mean,
I think this is like the purpose of these photos is I guess I could see whatever, sure. It looks like a cloak. It looks like some sort of a sacrificial sacred object if you turn it the other way. It does have a claw and a bead. But if they tell me it's farming equipment, I believe it's farming equipment as well.
fancied farming equipment. I mean,
Yeah, shiny.
it would. So let's for a minute now go with the assumption that it is farming equipment. And by the way, and I really do think it looks like bone. So I get like a wizard with a 3-foot really twisty bone staff. Like, I'm not seeing it. But anyway, whatever. Let's run with farming equipment for the moment, right? Okay, it's a farming implement of some kind. Not knowing what it is, we don't need to know what it is as far as like what its role on the farm is. I mean, but what does it tell us? The decorations, right? I mean, because there are two sets of leather. There are two leather cords tied around it. The bottommost leather cord, the brown leather cord, seems to be there to secure the claw, which could be a bear claw. People were asking if it's carved. It looks like it's textured, but I don't know if it's actually carved.
No, I think
it doesn't have designs on it,
normal.
I don't think. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's another bead that looks like it's made of bone, and then there's a third bead in the back of it that's right at the knot that just looks like decoration at the knot. I mean,
Yeah.
that's 3 different adornments
Yeah.
for farm equipment.
Exactly. Which is fairly remarkable. That big clumpy thing is the big clumpy, like, so this business at the base of the claw, is that attached to the claw or is it attached to the cord?
It looks like a bead with the cord going through it. I don't think it's attached to the claw, but I guess it could be like the bit of, if it is oh, it's not a tooth, it's a claw. The bit that
Right.
joins to the body.
Right.
It's
Like
really
a bit of
pretty.
bone attached to the claw, maybe, or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. Possibly.
And the
Possibly.
red strap almost looks like sinew. That looks very biological to me.
Yeah. Right.
And
Yeah.
the
Chad was
bone.
saying he thinks it's the phalange. That's what I was wondering. It's like a bit of knuckle bone attached to the claw. It might be. The way that the claw sticks out, it looks like that could be functional. Kind of like your pair of pliers that has like a wire cutter in the side or something. Like that you would be able to turn it around and do something else with the bear claw. I don't know what, cut something or something like that. So it's your combo tool of like breaking up the clods of earth with the bottom part of it, and cutting your your boxes open from your Amazon deliveries with the other side. I don't know. It's a Swiss Army broom, Josh, or something like that. Yeah, I can't rule out Man of Pong, and I agree. I'm not blowing up the image as much, but it's possible that it is carving on the claw. It's definitely not smooth. It doesn't. I wouldn't say it's writing, but but I could believe it's carved. And that carving, you know, you look at the carving on there, and then I compare it with like the decoration on the beads, on the beaded bracelet, with the other one.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I realize my face is right up to my laptop.
Yeah, it's okay. No, I'm like leaning down and looking too.
Trying to stare at it. It almost looks like letters, like ES or something. But I don't think it's that clear. I think that's just what I'm trying to see.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, so basically the main decision I'm trying to make is, what percentage function is this tool? You know, is it like 80% function, 20% decoration, or is it like 60-40? Because if they spent time like engraving the claw, the percentage decoration goes way up. It just tells you something about the culture, right? That they would do that, especially with their farming implements.
Well, especially with the rest of the outfit. I mean, if you look at everything else, this is a very working person. They are dirty, they're rough, they're, you know, they don't own 17 different cloaks. This is it.
Right.
And then the attention given to this piece of equipment, if their entire life is centered around farming and the earth, you know, maybe it's some sort of a almost religious element to farming the earth, that they commune with nature to,
right.
You know, there could be an element of culture here that we're not familiar with, but this tells us a lot potentially about it. Right.
There's some kind of ritual component there. Yeah, perhaps. I mean, it is, especially if that, I mean, could the bear claw have some kind of like totemic significance, right? Like it's, you know, the bear claw is tied on not because you use the bear claw to cut things, but you know what, to help your farming tool partake of the strength of the bear claw, right? You know, to as like a charm against the thing breaking or something. I mean, you know, there's all kinds of ways we could think about this. Is this a ritual community? Is this, you know, sort of a ritual or superstitious community? Is this an artistic community? I mean, are they just? Is this just the kind of thing they do? We don't see, as you say, we don't see any or almost. There's only one thing I can see on his whole outfit which suggests decoration in his clothes, and that's this lighter cuff that he's got here. So he's got his under tunic, and then he's got the sleeves of his tunic that come down, and then there seems to be like a light brown or kind of goldish cuff around the edge there, which is two-tone, darker and lighter, as we can see on the left-hand side there. You know, our left, his right.
Kind of just looks like twine wrapped around his wrist.
It's
though.
possible.
It's like hold the sleeves back. Yeah.
It's possible. But I'm saying that's the only thing that looks any decorative at all, like any bit decorative. There's nothing on his clothes at all that's decorative. And I would think that if they, you know, if this was the kind of culture that like no farming tool is complete without its decorative pieces attached to it, I would expect more in his clothes, is what I'm saying, you know. But we don't see that, so I don't know. We have no sense of scale. I mean, maybe if we could figure out what sort of animal this bone was from, and it's possible that it's not bone, it's possible that it's wood, but I'm still thinking bone. If it is bone and we could figure out what animal it was, then we would have some kind of scale. But yeah. See, I can't think he's a traveler, Lupita, mostly just because, again, like whatever the thing he's holding, would that be something you'd bring on a journey? I mean, it could be a weapon. If it's a weapon, yes. If it's a weapon, why is he holding it like that? I mean, if it's a weapon, it would have to be a kind of club / sickle-ish weapon, and that's obviously the handle that he's got in his hands there. So why is he holding it reversed in that case? I'm not really
And these
at
clothes
all
don't
sure
strike
there.
me as, ready to go on a long journey. They're a bit impractical for that.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, for sure. It could be a walking stick if it continues to the ground. Again, do we see any reason to disbelieve the descriptive text? Like, I'm not at all saying that I think that descriptive text is giving us like the full story of any of these, but do we have reason to think they're actually lying to us in any of these, like positively misleading us in the descriptive text?
Entirely possible.
I don't see any reason to think that. I mean, they're being coy in the descriptive text, obviously. All the pictures are coy, right? This whole gambit is coy, but I just, people who want to call it a staff or a walking stick, like, to say that, we have to say, therefore, we're confident that they're lying to us when they say it's a farming implement. Again, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that that's
Right.
what possible motivation for misdirection about this image do they have? Like, I just don't, I don't really see it. I kind of feel like I need to have some reason to be suspicious in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Lupita, it does. So I was just thinking that too. If we go back to, no, hang on, this is not the one that I want. I want to do the Instagram one where I can see them all. This dude, right? We do, of course, have the hands doing a similar thing. I'm going to go back and forth between that and this. Look at the difference in the body language of the hands, right? Look at the farm implement hands and the Sunburst armor sword hands, right? Look how much firmer the grasp is here. This guy's holding this sword like he means to turn it around and start using it any second. His knuckles are white on the top hand. The sun guy, right? Whereas the peasant dude is relaxed. Both of his hands are relaxed on this implement. His top knuckles are not white, and you can see how much looser his fingers are, right? This is casual. This is relaxed. The first guy is on guard. He's
Ready.
He's ready. This guy's what?
Bored.
Resting. I still don't know why. Bored? Yeah.
Yeah.
Bored. Possibly bored. Not very intense in any case. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's do the next one.
Yeah.
Next one is Acorn Dude.
Thank you.
Okay. Wait. Hang on. I broke my own rule. No, sorry, it's not Acorn Dude. I'm doing Twitter order. It's not Acorn Dude. Acorn Dude is the next one after that one. On Twitter, the next one is elvish looking dagger.
Mm-hmm.
Dagger with rounded top. I think this is obvious, and I think this is cool.
Speaking of being coy.
Okay. I feel a clearer conviction about this image, this person's identity, than I have of any picture we've seen so far. I see a clearly feminine hand.
Mm-hmm.
I see a dagger which has motifs of a tree in silver and a tree in gold intermingling, with the bottom part of the dagger hilt being intermingled silver and golden rays dripping down from the trees, like the liquid light of Laurelin and Telperion, and the blade of the dagger part gold and part silver. I see a very elvish style breastplate, clearly feminine, with the movement, and you can see the curve of the waistline on the left-hand side there. Even on the Twitter image, you can see that. and I see chainmail around the wrist. Chainmail developed by dwarves. Very fine chainmail. Chainmail developed by dwarves, and you can see that underneath the breastplate there is a long suit of very delicate chainmail under there as well. This almost has to be Galadriel. Mm-hmm. It almost has to be. That dagger, if this isn't Galadriel, she stole Galadriel's dagger. Because, of course, Galadriel's hair is the gold and silver light of the two trees mingling together. Like, the light of the two trees mingling together is Galadriel's trademark. Like, that's what her hair is like. That's what her hair reminded Feanor like. It's in the one version of the story. It's a thing that like inspired the Silmarils. It's kind of a big deal. This looks like, and I'm going to go further, this looks like a dagger which was made by Celebrimbor for Galadriel.
Ooh.
And pearls, yes, and pearls. I was just looking at the pearls as well. So yes, I was talking, when I was with the Torn folks a couple weeks or months ago, we were asked, at some point, I don't remember when, this question came up about Galadriel in armor. And I was like, of course we're going to see Galadriel in armor. Why wouldn't we see Galadriel in armor? Like, she's going to be there in Eriador, and there's going to be a war in Eriador. Why wouldn't, like, I think some people were like finding it shocking that we would see Galadriel in armor. And honestly, it's really funny because the Amazon folks have an interesting uphill climb in front of them, right? Because they're dealing with like two whole separate sets of potentially purist fans that whose like trust they have to win over, right? Mm-hmm. There's like the book purist fans, the book purists whose trust they have to win over and who are going to be upset about anything that's changed from the books. And then there's the Peter Jackson purist fans who are going to be upset about anything that violates the image that the Peter Jackson films have in them. This is why I honestly think this is the main, like, there were a bunch of people who were complaining about the voiceover in the title trailer that was reading the Ringverse, the female voice. And honestly, I feel 100% like the people who were just having but that's not Cate Blanchett reaction. Like, it's, they like Cate Blanchett's voiceover is the voiceover they're looking for, like it's just whether they think about it consciously or not, like that's the voiceover that they want. That's what, and it was different. It was very different. Like, the tone of voice was very different. The quality of her voice was very different from Cate Blanchett's. I quite liked it. I liked the voiceover. I loved the Ringverse voiceover. The choice to have just the Ringverse alone and no other words. I was comparing it to the way every Lord of the Rings volume has a blank page with the Ringverse on it before the title, right after the title page. It was kind of like that. I really liked that approach. I was impressed by that approach in the title video. And I kind of liked the fact that Galadriel's voice was higher pitched. She sounded younger. It was a younger sounding voice than Cate Blanchett. I know there's not a major difference in the actors' ages, but I don't care about the actors. It sounded younger. And I like that. I like younger, feistier Galadriel is totally what we should see in this series. But anyway...
part of that, I think, is like one of the challenges I'm having with Amazon is that they're keeping everything so close to the chest that we don't have a chance to form any expectations besides what we already know.
What we already bring in.
So they're already setting themselves up for a bit of a challenge because they haven't set themselves apart yet. So... if they're talking about filming in New Zealand, they're using a lot of the same cast and crew, not necessarily cast, crew and art design and things like that were part of these other worlds. We're going to kind of assume there's some similarities. So, I'm not surprised that backfired a little bit.
Right, absolutely.
But yeah, I'm with you. Like, it's, if you can't go into this thinking it's going to be different, because that's what adaptation is.
Just brace yourself for it. I mean, don't
be open.
be open. Be open. It's okay. It might be okay if it's different. I'm not saying all difference is good, but it might be okay. And so yeah, like
one interpretation, you know.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean it's wrong or ruined it for you. It's one interpretation.
Right, and you can always go back to a Galadriel who, if she enters battle, turns green instead, and that's like, you know, you can always have that. Like, they can't take green Galadriel away, unfortunately. But oh yeah, sorry, thank you, James Tauber. We just posted a link on the YouTube chat to his very useful spreadsheet, which I have totally on my other window over here.
I have mine open as well. Thanks, James.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, James, for that. Checking that out. I'm gonna be coming back, James, to the sequence thing that you were pointing out before. We'll get back to that. Anyway, yeah, it's and I don't seem to seem unsympathetic. Like, I really do get it. I'm a recovered purist myself. Like, I began life as a snooty purist. I was the most insufferable of purists in the old, but I've reformed, and I'm here to tell you, my fellow purists, that there is a richer life that awaits you. I have tasted it, and if you can let it go, your life will be richer. I promise. It's really worth it. But anyway,
that's
so yes.
I say whenever I lecture any of this stuff about adaptation, where it's just everyone take a breath. Leave your pitchfork in your backpack. You can bring it because you might still be real pissed off, but don't leave it in your backpack. Yeah.
Absolutely. So okay. So
it's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
I want to talk to the art director. I mean, I think that dagger is absolutely stunning.
Yeah. Chad, I do like the idea that the sea people link, right? Like the pearls are recalling her Telerin roots from her mother, right? Eowyn of the Teleri. That's great. That's very I like that. Again, which makes it feel to me even more like a gift piece, right? Like, this is like it's Galadriel's dagger, right? It is the this I guess it's theoretically possible that this is not Galadriel, but as I said, if this isn't Galadriel, she stole her dagger. So like, I don't think there's any identification. No, there's definitely no identification I have felt more strongly about, because most of them I don't feel like we've been given enough to confidently assert identity. Mostly because, of course, I'd feel a little bit more confident. The comment that you made last time, Maggie, has totally thrown me for a loop and made me cautious in all of my identifications about not knowing the scope, right? Like, these could be people from season 7 for all we know, right? People who aren't introduced until season 6 or 7. So, whom are we getting, and what's the timeline like, and what if this were like, okay, it's just people involved in the first stages of like the forging of the Rings of Power, then I would feel like, okay, I feel like I could make a list of folks and have some process of elimination. And so if I could use the process of elimination, then I would feel like I could make some more guesses, right? But if it could be that wide open, if we could be getting people from season 5 or whatever, then the cast, the potential scope is too large, and so I really don't know.
I mean, it's really this image and the potential Sauron image that I think, maybe one or two others, that you could clearly assign some characters to. The rest of them feel like employment ads. Like, come work on the farm, come be a fisherman. They're so generic that we don't know who they are. And that's okay, but because we knew early on that Galadriel was going to be in this, you knew one of these images had to hearken pretty strongly to her.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
only 5 seasons, right?
5, I think, is what the number I
Yeah,
remember
I think it's
hearing.
going to be 5.
Yeah, 5. Yeah, yeah. Um, I was saying 7 is almost a large random number, but anyway, yeah, no,
So I
5.
was like, optimistic.
That's why I corrected myself to 5, because then I remembered that. Anyway, what else was I going to? Oh yeah, so I was just going to say this is why I think, although it is fun, and in cases like this, I feel like it jumps out. But in general, to me, the more fun thing about these pictures is looking at cultures and you know, the sort of world as a whole, instead of trying to guess individual characters, especially if, yeah, because you know that a significant percentage of these, especially the peasant characters, are gonna be turn out to be characters that they've invented for the show, right? So like, we couldn't even have guessed. So why trouble ourselves?
Because this is what they want us to do.
Yeah, right. Well, yes, but I'm not even sure that that's what. Hang a second. I didn't check the wide angle. Let's go to wide angle. Galadriel. Where is she? Okay, here we go. Oh wait, we get something over here. Is that a sword on her hip? Right hip over there? Right hip. Well, she's holding the dagger in her left hand. Is Galadriel left-handed? Is that a sword on her right hip and she's holding her dagger in her left hand? Is Galadriel left-handed? That's interesting. I think that's something over there.
It definitely has a form of something.
Hilt.
Or maybe that's the holster for the dagger, and she can grab it with her left hand.
Possibly.
Across her body.
Could be an empty scabbard. I don't know what this vertical thing is here. Yeah. Yeah, okay. That reminds me. Do you think they're appealing to any kind of symbolism in having her left hand only visible and her right hand not visible at all? Hang on. Hang on. Of the ones we've seen, we got a left-handed spiky gauntlet, presumably late Sauron. I'm just looking at the one-handed ones right now. We got a right-handed rich Numenorian dude, rich and powerful Numenorian dude. We got left-handed sailor. That's it. Well, we got a right-handed horse head dude, which we did out of order. Yeah.
Right.
So she's the only everybody glancing ahead and cheating. Yeah, right hand, left hand. This is a left hand.
The dude with the model.
The dude, yeah, whatever that is.
That's it.
We'll get to him. So Galadriel is very unusual in it's just Galadriel and Sauron. Or is that? Yeah, that's his left hand. On the gauntlet. No, that's his right hand. It's his right hand facing down. Yeah, that's right. Where's the thumb on this gauntlet? Now I gotta go look at it again.
I think it's his left hand.
No, yeah, there's his. Is this the thumb claw up here on the top?
Oh, it's tough to tell. Oh, maybe.
Is that the thumb claw? In which case it would be the left hand. Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, thumb claw at the top, we're thinking. Okay. All right. So probably left-handed. Okay, so that would make Galadriel and Sauron our left-hand buddies. So is the sailor. We got the sailor with the left hand, though his left hand isn't holding a weapon. And then we've got that dude. Well, we'll get back to that dude. Okay. All right. So, yep. All right, we did Galadriel. Now, Acorn dude.
Acorns.
Acorn dude. All right. Acorn dude. Scale again. Hobbit again.
Female.
Female again. Yes. More burlap, rough tunic, more dirt, more non-bathing dirt.
Gathered skirts. I think those could be gathering bags attached to her skirt so the acorns go in them, similar to the Blackberry Lady.
Yep, it is possible. That round metal thing that seems to be bound to the front, is that a tool? Is that a it looks like there might be a handle, like between the two S's, the S of the Rings of Power and the S of Ceres. Is that a metal handle that sticks down? So
yeah.
And it's tied around with this woven,
or a point of some, maybe
strap.
that's what it uses to cut off the tops of the acorns.
Right. So you've got a scoop at the bottom and a point at the top. I don't think it's a decorative button. I think that's a tool hanging from her waist there. But that red thing, look at the red strap that's hanging down. That could be decorative.
Yes,
These
definitely.
red, like, discs thing.
And there's a little more red underneath the smile of Prime Video.
Yeah,
To the
down
right.
over here. Yeah. Yeah, and that one almost looks like something that's on the fabric. Like, not embroidery, but, like actually attached to the fabric. Yeah. It could be a wide spoon, Phil, something like that. That could be a spoon. Or a
There's
strainer.
holes in the, there's holes in the center of it. So
There's holes in the center of it. Yeah, I'm
there's
not sure what
5
that's
holes
for.
punched into the center of the bowl part of the spoon.
Right. Yeah, 5 in a row, like dice pips, right?
Like
5.
dice, yeah.
Yeah, right there, right above the word Lord. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's definitely spoon shaped. Yeah.
The more I zoom in on these acorns, the faker they look.
Yes.
They look real fake. Like the especially the one in the back, like you can see the paint line
and they're so shiny. It's odd. It's odd because the texture, the texture on the acorn caps doesn't
looks plastic.
Yeah, it looks plastic.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Especially when the detail's so good on the other stuff. Like,
yes, exactly. And I mean, like, that level of detail would work perfectly fine for an on-screen prop that you didn't see that closely, right? I mean, they look plenty like acorns.
Yeah, but you're asking us to scrutinize this.
You're giving us high-resolution, zoom-inable images. That is a hard phrase to say. In which these acorns are front and center the primary object, right?
I'm gonna look at the wider one, see if there's anything else.
Yeah.
No.
Not really. You can just see it looks a little bit more obvious on her left hip, the open bag there, and probably one on each side, as you say, collecting bags that are tied in. Yet very well worn tunic, not even stitched up where it's got holes. She's got an under tunic under it looks like. You can see through the hole on the one right above her right wrist. And it looks like you can see a whiter fabric underneath there. Yeah, I don't...
At the very top, she's got two little ties coming down too that I don't know if it's from a hat or some other decoration, but it's like green, different than the shirt.
Yeah, and you can't see those on the Instagram picture at all.
Yeah, I feel like this one's quite nondescript.
Just another peasant working class picture, though.
And we assume small because the acorns are huge.
Why acorns?
Yeah, who eats those?
Nobody. That's the thing. Acorns are like not even really... Well, I guess they're edible, but you can't make them taste good. Like they're like incredibly bitter. I mean, they're like barely a food source. It is possible, of course, that these are the seeds of something else. These could be like Malorn seeds, as Chad was just pointing out. I mean, they don't have to be oak acorns, and maybe that's why they look fake, because they would be fake if they were oak acorns, right? But if they're designed to be something else, which has a different texture, yes, someone cradling acorns in their hands does not say to me, I'm gathering dinner.
Right.
It says to me,
treasured object.
Right. I'm planting trees. Right. Like I'm, and especially if those are Malorns, I wonder.
That's a nice spin. So her bags are full of acorns that she's planting rather than gathering.
Right. This is female hobbit Johnny Appleseed, right, with her Malorn tree plantings or something like that. Yeah.
And the descriptive text doesn't really give us anything. It just says someone's small hands. So they specifically note that they're small hands, which could be hobbit, but it could just be.
Well, I mean, I think that acorns and the blackberries have in common, as you say, like the scale thing, right? If there's no point in putting blackberries and making it look like two blackberries are a big handful for a person, unless you're trying to convey scale, right? An acorn seed. Now, these could be much larger seeds and not actually related to oak at all, but yeah. I think even in such case, I think that we're getting, but I think that, so I'm definitely seeing now, if we go back to Instagram and back to the array here, between acorn girl and blackberry girl rather, and well, those two in particular, we don't know about unidentified farming implement dude, right? His scale. That's because we can't really tell the scale of the implement, right? But we're definitely getting an agrarian. It's interesting. So we have the two seeds being cradled in hands, right? The acorns and the berries, both also being collected in burlap collection bags, right? One almost certainly as a food source, right? The other probably not as a food source. And again, notice the difference in the gesture as well, right? You've got the one-handed, I got a fistful of blackberries that I'm about to put into, and with my other hand, I'm holding on to the sack that I'm going to be putting the blackberries into, right? Whereas the acorn person is doing the lotus flower hold, right? Or something very like it. That kind of like gesture of reverence and peace, right? Which is another thing another reason, Chad, why I like your Malorn theory. It suggests a very different relation. Again, it's just another thing that suggests a different relationship with those seeds, and therefore perhaps tells us something about that culture. Sorry, I'm looking at the shawl lady and her beaded bracelet as well. We don't see anything with the seeds or anything agrarian exactly there. But certainly the fabrics, I'm just going back to that for a second. The fabrics look very much in keeping with the fabrics that we see with the others. I'm beginning more and more to think that Shawl Lady is definitely lives in the same village as Acorn Girl and Blackberry Girl there. Yeah.
Okay. I see them quite different, but I see what you mean with the textiles. They are the same.
The textiles is what I was meaning.
Shawl Lady I see as a traveler or of some type.
Possibly.
But yeah, the two with the acorn and berries, they've got the same green, the same weave, the same worn. So yeah, maybe she's the village elder and the two are farmhands.
Right. They could be, I mean, as Autoflagellator was just saying, they could be some kind of like nomadic hunter-gatherer. I mean, they could be nomadic, as you were thinking about for the Shawl Lady. And that's why we're getting all this gathering and, why Acorns here has burlap sacks like tied into her garments, right? She's like seems to go about with collecting bags, right? As you might do if you were a nomadic hunter-gatherer, right? If we do have nomadic hunter-gatherer hobbits, then Mr. Agricultural laborer over there is probably not one, right? Because you're not into agriculture if you're a nomadic hunter-gatherer, but by definition.
He's Bondfield.
Yeah. James, I see no reason to think hobbits would have to be nomads based on what we know about them. Look, we know nothing, absolutely nothing about hobbits in the Second Age. Nothing. We know what hobbits are going to be 2,000 years later, okay? At least, maybe 3,000 years later. We know nothing about hobbits in the Second Age, and there is almost nothing that they could do with hobbits in the Second Age that couldn't be made to fit a timeline that gets us to the Shire in 3,500 years, right? So, there's nothing that we know about Second Age hobbits. We know they didn't live in the Shire. Not even true. They could have lived in the Shire. We know that the Shire is not going to be established as the Shire until then, right? So we know the Shire itself is not. We know that they don't live in a land that they call the Shire, right? But who knows? 3,000 years, right? There could have been a settlement of hobbits who lived there and wandered off and then moved back in 3,000 years later and called it the Shire. There's almost nothing that we know about that. So it's just
incredible rich fodder for Amazon. They're just going to run with whatever they want.
It's great. Yeah. Just keep in mind, there are some things 3,000 years. There can be some pretty significant cultural shifts in 3,000 years. Yeah. So, So I just try to remember how little we know about this. Yeah, we do know they're going to end up near Mirkwood a couple millennia from now. Yes, we know that. But they could go they could get to the Gladden River, Smeagol's grandma's ancestors could have gotten to the Gladden Fields by way of the Sea of Rune, for all we know. We just have no idea. Right. Fingin 120 is imagining warmongering, cannibalistic hobbits. Hey, you could make it work. I'd be a little, I wouldn't do it myself. I'm not sure that's the richest option, but I 3,000 years is a long, long time.
Anything can happen.
Yeah. Anyway, I just, okay. All right. the language connection, James, the linguistic connection between hobbits, Holbitlan, and the Rohirrim comes from the time that's recent history. That's from like 1,000 years ago, basically, in the earlier Third Age, when the hobbits lived in the northern Anduin, like it's Gollum's ancestors, right? The hobbits living in the northern Anduin, near where the Eotheod lived, right? The legends of hobbits, of the Holbitlan, that are still told among the Rohirrim seem to have come from that time. But that time is 2,000 years after the Amazon series. So, Dick Yavu, I don't know at all how the Hobbit storyline is going to tie in with the main story. But I was saying yesterday, my primary guess is that we know that there is going to be, I have to imagine that Numenorian imperialism in Middle-earth is going to be a plot feature. And therefore, if you are going to show the Numenorians conquering portions of Middle-earth, even if you show, and here I'm going back to our friend, the friendly-looking sailor dude, right? Who seems like a nice guy from what we can see of his left arm and shoulder and his coil of rope, right? If we are gonna start with a guild of adventurers, Aldarion and his good, well-intentioned guild of adventurers visiting Middle-earth to be helpful and to help out, they could start off with the beginning story and have the Numenorians like sea gods returning to Middle-earth and helping the inhabitants and giving them useful technology and teaching them how to grow crops and things like that. And then returning later on, generations later, to first oppress and take tribute, and then to enslave, and then ultimately to participate in human sacrifice. It is very possible that we're going to see that. I think it very likely indeed that we're going to see that kind of progression between the interaction between Numenor and Middle-earth. And if you're going to show that, you need Middle-earth residents to have that relationship with the Numenorians, right? That's my best guess as to the role of the Hobbit culture. I wouldn't think that it would be, that the point would be, I don't think that the point would be that the hobbits are like living near Eregion and like, Celebrimbor has them working farms on his estate or something. I don't see how the Hobbit quest line would be connected with the Hobbit quest line. The Hobbit storyline would be related to the elf storyline, exactly that. But the Numenorian one, the whole Middle-earth imperialism thing, that I think would be very useful. And you're right, Drowsnake, it would be a great way for them to show the corruption of the Numenorians, because everybody loves hobbits. Yeah, if the Numenorians come in and help out the hobbits, then they're obviously good guys. When they start oppressing the hobbits or even enslaving hobbits, then that's very wicked indeed, right? So yeah, I agree. It would be a good way to kind of trigger the audience in that way. Mm-hmm. Yeah. JJ, that's on my list. My list of things that I really kind of hope to see, but don't really necessarily expect, but would be an Easter egg that would make me very happy, is if the hobbits send a few archers to the Battle of the Last Alliance. Yes. Foreshadowing the battle at Fornos that they claim to send a few archers to. Totally. That's absolutely one of the things that's on my list that I expect. That's a good question. Josh the Left is saying, if you're doing human sacrifices, do hobbits only count as half? I don't know. I'm not an expert on human sacrifice. Do you have to sacrifice twice as many hobbits, or does their cuteness make them a more potent sacrifice to Melkor? I don't know. That's
Things Amazon probably hasn't considered.
probably not. And Josh, I'm delighted to say that question has never once in my entire life crossed my mind. And I can't pretend that I have found my life very enriched by having asked it. But anyway, all right, let's get back to our image. Okay, so now we're back. We're down to the one that we skipped to before, which we'll be brief about. Horse sword dude. I was right. I said that we do have a culture in the Second Age that we know is very horse-oriented and famous for their cavalry, and it's the Numenorians. And look at the sword. So, okay, the blade of the sword, you've got a horse's head at the top, but look how it goes on. It becomes a sea creature. It's a horse-headed thing that becomes a sea serpent as it goes. So this is a seahorse sword. So we've got the aquatic thing and we've got the horse thing. Totally Numenorian. Totally Numenorian. Numenorian all day long. Yeah. I did not notice the aquatic imagery at all. And then you can see, the swirls. You got the what looks like sea imagery there. And the fish scale armor, yes.
Yeah, like the descriptive text even says scale mail, doesn't it?
Yeah, reddish scale mail, yeah.
Yeah, very specific.
Yeah.
And the chain across the chest, it looks a bit like snaffle bits on a horse's bridle too. So there's that carried through.
Yeah, this is going to be like probably a cavalry officer. I'm looking at the chain around his wrist there, similar actually to the chain on the baldric or whatever the band that comes down. And I agree, the belt does look like the Sunburst design. It's if we look at that, the round knob at the middle, and then the fine detail circle around that, and then you can see the 4 spikes there. So let me look at that really carefully, and then
it looks like the same as the Renaissance painting merchant guy you were talking about.
That's just what I was gonna go back and look at.
It's the same belt.
It looks like, okay, it's not exactly the same Sunburst on his on Numenorian rich dude's belt, but I'm looking at the other one. Hang on, let me go back to the Twitter image of him because we could see more of his upper decorations here. Hang on. Back up to blue rich guy. Where did he go? There are so many of these. There he is. Okay.
I know.
All right. Phew.
What more do we have?
Yeah, right. Okay, up there. Yeah. Okay, so we get the 4 points in these 2 sigils. They're not exactly the same because they don't have the round boss in the middle, and the spike doesn't extend out. It's not identical, but it certainly is
of the same ilk.
Connected.
And the belt part almost is identical, not the round bit, but the actual.
Oh, the actual belt itself. All right, hang on. I was just looking at the boss. Okay, so here we've got the. Ooh, doesn't that look like the spine of some armored creature almost? His belt. That's really interesting. Yeah. Okay. All right. Hang on. So let's go back down to the horse guy. Where's our cavalry dude? Here he is. Okay. Yes, you're right. That belt is almost identical.
Yeah.
The armored spine belt there. Yes. Yep. Yeah. So Numenorian cavalry officer. Clearly, I mean, obvious as the day is long. And now we don't know who. No way of guessing who, really. Especially since, given what we were discussing about how my suspicion is that we are going to begin with, we're not going to just come into corrupt Numenor at the end. It's possible. It's possible that Numenor's a bad guy from day one, but I will be very surprised and disappointed if they do that. because in order to get the fall of Numenor, you can't start at the end. Like, you've got to see what they're falling from, right? We need good Numenor first in order to have it be a tragedy, in order for it to hit us. Otherwise, it's just going to be, hooray, Numenor's gone, good riddance. It's going to be, we're going to be dancing around like the winged monkeys at the end of The Wizard of Oz if they just come in and they're already enslaving hobbits, right? So, so we have to have good Numenor at the beginning if it's going to seem like a tragedy. And therefore, they're going to have to, as we were discussing yesterday, they're going to have to compress the Numenorian timeline to fit that into 5 seasons somehow. And so therefore, this, like, the people, the Numenorian characters on these images could be literally anybody from Elros to Ar-Pharazôn. I mean, and Elendil. I mean, it's like the entire gamut. Probably not Elros himself. Again, Aldarion is the one that I would expect. That's the era I would expect them to begin. Yeah. Is there danger of confusing viewers with the Rohirrim Drow Snake? No, I don't think. It's designed. It's building on those expectations explicitly.
Yeah, I think that's really purposeful. Like, yeah, there's definitely that risk, but they see that as a positive thing.
It's
like,
a positive
thing. You recognize this? Come on in.
Yeah, exactly. I think that we'll see. Like, the cool thing is to see, like, these are the guys of whom, like, you know, the Rohirrim will retroactively remind us of them, right? And that's a really cool thing to be able to build. Yes, Chad, I agree with you completely. That Chad says, I bet they'll compress it so that A, it covers that much time, and B, seems to have only been over the course of 100 years or so. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna, again, because if you really try to depict 2,000 years worth of Numenorian development, you have to imagine these elves twiddling their thumbs like, meanwhile, Celebrimbor still forging. Yep, no, I'm just doing my thing over here. Been doing it for the last 1,500 years. Don't worry about me. Like, it's hard to balance that. So yeah, there's got to be, it almost has to be compression, or at least, Chad, as you say, the appearance of compression at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, when you're covering this much ground and you're talking about this many characters, if they want us to care, the activities and the events and the history are going to be fascinating, but the caring, the emotional is with the character. Right. So if we don't have that, so yeah, I think they're going to have to compress just so we're not following 37 different lineages across multiple generations. Right. We're following the same 20 to 30 characters we know and care about.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be. It's got to. They have to do that. I mean, you just can't have. You can have a cast of thousands, so long as 980 of them are extras, right? You know, you cannot get the viewers to remember and be invested in all of these characters. Again, this is one reason why so many people don't finish the Silmarillion. But let me go down to Horse Guy on Instagram, just make sure there wasn't anything interesting on the side. No, oh yeah, we get a little bit more of his chain, which looks like it goes all the way up his arms on his right-hand side. We've got the right hand, not the left, like Galadriel, but
the chain, at least on the wrist, I assume it's the same as the one across his body, is really detailed. Like, when you super zoom in on it, I almost wonder if it's like a nobility or a rank kind of a emblem.
I wonder. And that's why he has that. Because it doesn't look actually like a baldric. Like, it looks worked into the armor, right? So again, more like a rank notation rather than, he just happens to be wearing like a horn on a baldric and it's draped across his chest. Yeah, exactly. Oh, Emily, we haven't gotten a gold dust guy yet. We're getting there. We're doing Twitter order, so we're okay. All right, Broken Sword Dude. Okay, Broken Sword Dude. Broken Sword Dude. Broken Sword Dude with a dirty hand.
I love these technical names.
Yeah. No, these are very... hope my jargon isn't too off-putting to people.
The sword is old and jagged, and the hilt is ornate. They are clad in a robe of fur and animal skin. So this is our first fur and animal skin we've seen, isn't it? That's quite different.
It is quite different. It is
Mm-hmm.
quite different.
God, look at that sword hilt. That's amazing.
And look at that rune.
Yeah. I have to compare it to the Sauron sword.
Me too. It's
Similar, but not the same.
yeah. This is an evil sword.
Hmm.
This is an evil sword. I mean, I took one glance, like the very first time I looked, I was like flipping through the tweets, just like scanning them to see what they were. I saw this, said Elendil, and moved on because I'm like broken sword, right? Okay, we've got a broken sword dude. We have a broken sword dude in the cast. That's known, right? Or maybe Isildur wielding the hilt shards of Narsil. That was my very first thought too. But then I was looking at this and I'm like, when I actually looked at it, I was like, no, this is not Narsil. This is this.
I mean,
So
the
this is
blade
an
is
evil.
like-
This is a very evil sword.
The blade is like obsidian black.
Yes.
It looks like there's a claw gripping around it. Yeah,
Yes.
it's not friendly.
This is an unfriendly. Look at the bottom. The pommel ends in spikes, right? And it has what looks like an orcish rune, like a black speech rune carved into it. I mean, that looks like an orc sigil or something on the blade.
And it looks like it's been burned and charred. But if you look at the right side, look how shiny the edges are. Like it's been polished. I mean, that's a CG shine that they've put in there.
Yes.
Like that's
Yeah.
an extra effect afterwards to make it look sharp and shiny.
But I agree. It doesn't even look like it's made of metal. It looks obsidian.
Obsidian.
Yeah, something like that. Concerning which, no wonder it broke. But I mean, obsidian is very sharp, but
Obsidian Middle Earth might be a little different.
That's true. That's true. Could be a future Nazgul. If so, he is being pretty precocious. That is to say, obviously, someone who is serving Sauron right away. For the record, I hope they might do this with some, like, so candidates for future Nazgulhood, right? Let me do a little profile of a future Nazgul. I hope that most of the future Nazgul are not servants of Sauron, right? These need to be great kings who are independent, maybe even priding themselves on their independence from Sauron, and who are ensnared by the Nine Rings and end up being compelled to serve him. I don't see Sauron recruiting a whole bunch of allies among human nations and then distributing the Nine Rings among his buddies, right? That he might, that maybe a couple of them are like that, but if they're all like that, I'll be pretty disappointed. I think that there should be a kind of fall, right? In each case for the Nazgul. So that's why I'm saying, if this is a mortal dude yet unwraithified and not wearing a ring of power in this picture anyway, if this is a future Nazgul and he's already wielding a sword of evil, even a broken sword of evil, then again, that's why I say he's precocious. He's getting ahead of himself there.
I like James' comment in the YouTube chat where he says the person wielding it might have just found it. Like,
right,
that's entirely possible.
Could be a found artifact. Yeah. What about the fur and animal skin? Hang on, let me check the Instagram version. Make sure we're not getting anything on the edges. We can see his shoulders. Okay. Not too much, but okay. Okay. could be a found artifact. It is old. This does not look like like the edges of the broken edge of the blade there are dulled, right? This is not a sword which just broke 2 minutes ago, right? No way.
What?
Oh, see, I wasn't even allowing myself to think of that.
What?
No way. It can't. No. No.
My God, you've got to fill me in. What?
It couldn't be Turin's sword.
Oh,
No.
there's been a lot of chatter about that.
No, they wouldn't do that. Oh, no. No. No.
Oh, Corey.
Okay, look, I say no because... Okay, no. Man of Pong, I hear you, evil broken bucks, but it's not that kind of evil sword. Like, I mean, yes, it was a sketchy sword. Yes, it was made by Aeol, and the dark spirit of the smith was in it. Yes, I know, but okay. Why am I resistant to this? Why am I saying no? Why am I saying no? Look, I'm not saying that isn't awesome. I'm not saying that isn't awesome because it's awesome. My first impulse is just that it's too much.
Yeah, my only hesitation is that he's first age, right? So like
he's first age. It's ancient.
To manage. Why are we dipping into something else?
Right. Like it's a relic. I mean, but you'd have to go into the whole Turin story to make any sense of this. Like, if somebody has found the hilt shards of Gurthang, then like, oh, okay, like, yeah, but then he has to have a reason to find it. People have to know what it is, and they have to explain what it is, and then what do we do with it and why? Yeah, John Meek says, quick, see if anyone was cast as a talking sword. That's a good question. Yeah, exactly. Listen carefully. Does it sound like Gurthang? Yeah. I do agree. If it is... I said it looked like obsidian, but I say it looks like obsidian because of its blackness, primarily. If it were Gurthang, the blackness of Gurthang's blade would be like unto the blackness of this blade. I totally grant that. I don't know what that rune is. Phil, okay, so, all right. No, it can't be. It'll be really awesome if it is, but it can't be. They can't be working in the Turin story to that extent, can they?
They can do whatever they want, but I'd be surprised. They have so much to work with. Why would you? Why?
But then again, if you're going to do this, why do you give, as the first ever teaser image of the show, a shot including the two trees?
Yeah.
Like, would the Tolkien estate give them rights to the Turin material? I hold nothing impossible. Look, again, that image with the two trees, that was a flex if I've ever seen one. They were flexing in that image. if you did not look at that image of Tyrion with the two trees in the background that they released as the poster image to tell you what was coming in the series, and did not emerge from that saying, apparently they have some Silmarillion rights, I don't know what you're thinking, because like they could not have represented that on screen if they did not have any rights to the Silmarillion. So there was speculation before. My speculation is somewhere in the 98% range that they have Silmarillion rights. Not necessarily all of them, and not necessarily the whole thing, but yeah. Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, it's to what extent is that? You know, what are they allowed to do with that? Maybe they have carefully circumscribed first age rights. I don't know.
Or maybe they're just referencing back to this stuff to really tap into some Easter eggs that get us excited, and to illustrate that there's a wealth of this world that we're not going to access. Because all that's going to do is world build for them and make it amazing for when we watch it to go, wow, there's so much here. But we're going to laser focus in on this second age and these specific 30 people or whatever. But we'll be aware of so much.
Maybe it's setting up the Children of Hurin spin-off series that's coming afterwards.
Maybe they're negotiating something else for an extra 100 million right now that they're really laying some foundations, because why the hell not?
Maybe it's setting up I mean, I would not be at all surprised if there were other spin-off series like that. That would be a reason to include Turin's sword if you were setting up something like that. But I can't see, even if they had, forgetting the rights for a second, they don't have the focus. Like, they don't have time. They don't have time to tell the Turin story. Like, this is what, when people were reacting to the two tree image, which, like, I get it. Like, that was mind blowing. But, you know, when people are like, oh, does this mean we're going to get the darkening of Valinor? No, it doesn't mean we're going to get that. I mean, maybe in a flashback, we might get a montage which includes some of the darkening of Valinor or something, but we're not going to get the whole first age. We're, you know, it's going to be setting up it's going to be a second age story, and 5 seasons is not too much to tell. I mean, think of what we were we've already been discussing, how much compression is going to have to happen to get the rise and fall, you know, the fall of Numenor, and the forging of the rings of power, and the deception, and the discovery, and the war, and then afterwards the War of the Last Alliance. We have 2 wars to do, the war in Eriador first, and Celebrimbor's corpse and everything else, and then after that, the Battle of the Last Alliance, once Numenor's already fallen, and we're going to have to send Sauron. So think of Sauron's jobs, right? Sauron has to attack or like deceive Celebrimbor, right? And do the Rings of Power thing. Then he has to B, invade Eriador and kill Celebrimbor and lay siege to Rivendell and eventually get defeated with the help of the Númenóreans coming in. Then he has to set himself up as Lord of Men, establish his human kingdom, which rivals the later Númenóreans, and have his butt kicked by Ar-Pharazôn, who comes over and scares Sauron's entire army away down by Umbar. And then Sauron has to go back to Numenor and start his human sacrifice and corrupt Numenor and bring about the downfall of Numenor. Then he's got to get back to Middle-earth, set up with the Nazgul in Barad-dûr in time to get invaded by the Battle of the Last Alliance. Like, that is not too little for 5 seasons. That's a lot, right? So there's no time to tell. I don't care what their rights are. There's no time to tell first age stories. There's just not. There's absolutely no way. So John Paul, hey John Paul. John Paul says, I just described all 5+ seasons. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it, right? I mean we've got lots. Look, it's if this can't be the Sword of Turin, this can't be the Hilts of Gurthang in an Easter egg. You don't put an Easter egg in the middle of one of these posters, okay? You don't. You don't. Like, I mean, like they could have, like, remember the little like pseudo museum wing of Rivendell in the Peter Jackson film where the shards of Narsil were kept, right? Mm-hmm. And the tapestries and everything were going, like, I could imagine there being a place, maybe in Numenor, right? Where you're like walking through the king's palace in Numenor and there's stuff on the walls, right? Like, look, it's Aronruth, the sword of Thingol. Look, over here is the shards of like the hilt shards of Gurthang, right? Like, you know, there being like a Numenorian museum where Easter eggs are on display, which never get talked about in the plot, but like keen-eyed Tolkien fans could spot them and identify them. Like, if something like that happened, it would be awesome, and I could totally see that. But you don't put those in the middle of your movie poster. Like, you don't. Like, that's not... So this thing is the absolute centerpiece. This sword is the centerpiece of this image, and therefore has to have some at least symbolic significance and be connected to this dude in the hide and fur somehow, who also doesn't look like he bathes very frequently. He's one of our unwashed clan here. But, okay, so that means there's got to be story attached to it. And I just can't see them attaching story. I mean, look, again, I love it. I love the idea. If it's Gurthang, I'm here for it. I really am. Like, I don't want anyone to think I don't like it. But the reason I think it's unlikely is, as compelling and awesome an idea as that is like, how? Where can they go? What story can they tell? I just don't... I don't think... Yeah. And
if they are
and that rune can't be original. That rune can't be original. Like, Eowl never carved that rune. I don't believe it.
If they are going to do it, this is an excellent way to plant the seed. But
right.
I agree with everything you said. It would be absolute madness. But hey.
Madness. Madness is just what it would be. It would be madness.
And also, like, hell for a scriptwriter. I'm like, you tell me you want to throw that in there, I'd be like, right.
Yeah.
Ow.
Right.
Yeah.
Pull the other one, right? I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's yeah.
Well, I could see it in a tiny flashback where they just allude to this depth of history that we get a moment to really sit with, which is awesome in world building. But they wouldn't put that on a poster.
They wouldn't put it on a poster. Exactly.
Yeah.
Easter egg, yes. Poster, no.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, let's move on.
Well, except one last question.
Oh, no, I don't mean from the posters. I mean,
yeah, from Gurthang, from Turin, yeah.
Yeah, from Turin.
If it's not Gurthang, what is it? Who is this? What's going on here?
And who's holding it? And did he find it? Because he looks like a complete vagabond, right?
Right. He does not look like I mean, it's a nice coat. This is a sheepskin coat. I think this is a sheepskin coat. Sheepskin on the outside with wool on the inside.
Sure. I don't know my skins.
I think this is a sheepskin coat. I might be wrong, but I think it's a sheepskin coat. I mean, it could be a different animal's skin, I suppose. But it's like one of those coats with, like, it's a warm coat with the for something like that. Yeah. Emily says maybe it's a farming implement. Love it. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it looks like a sheepskin coat. So I mean, this guy looks like a herder of some kind. Like it doesn't even look like a it doesn't even look like a yeah. It doesn't even look like any kind of like armor or anything, you know, like any kind of protective. It just looks like a very warm,
just a functional coat.
And there's nothing else we can see of him. Like no other garment, nothing under it. I mean, we just see his skin underneath the coat from what I can see. So we have no idea what he's wearing under the coat, unless maybe just to the top right of the blade, that's a little bit of collar of some kind of tunic under it. Maybe, I don't know, but we get nothing to work with here. He looks rough. He looks like he doesn't bathe, but here's this sword. which matches nothing that he has. I'm totally willing to believe that this is a thing that he found.
Yeah.
But what would it be?
And it certainly looks like a cold climate. I mean, I'm getting like Superman illusions here. Is it in the ice?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Fresh from the Cavern of Solitude or whatever. Yeah, I'm having difficulty because of the time frame thing. Again, is this a season 4 guy or is this a season 1 guy? Is one of my questions, right? Because if it's an evil sword, again, in the non-Gurthang category, if this were a sword of Sauron's, for instance, when did Sauron's sword get broken and lost? Like, in what engagement did that happen? And why is it relevant that someone's like, I have it, here it is, right? What, from the First Age? And if so, I don't know. Like, I just, I don't, I'm not getting it there. Yeah. I think it very likely. Yeah, no, I think it very likely, you had said this before, Kendall, that it, they could just be making a thing that's made up for the show and doesn't have any connection to any lore that we know. One always has to keep that in mind, right? I mean, all we can, since we don't know what they're going to do and have no way of knowing it, all we can do is try to judge by what we do know and see if it fits with anything. I could very easily believe that this was an old sword of Sauron's. It looks evil. It's got what looks like a black speech rune. But I can't think of when Sauron was meant to have lost his sword. Yeah, don't know. Okay, but we should move on, or we're gonna.
Oops, sorry, dog.
Oh yeah, no worries. Okay. How many do we have left? I feel like we're doing much worse than. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we're way lower tonight.
Oh, so many. Okay, time for efficiency.
It's because I was in charge of the pictures yesterday. That's why.
You're right. You were driving. Okay. All right.
But is anybody complaining? Nope.
No, I know, but I have to go soon because my family will not eat tonight.
Hey,
I'm the cook in my household, and it's almost dinner time. So, okay. All right.
This is already well past my bedtime, so hey,
yeah,
we'll go
until
we need to.
We might have to do part 3. Okay. All right.
All right. So we got the sickle.
Oh no! Oh, Sickle. No, wait, hang on. No, because I'm doing Twitter I skipped. Look at me skipping down. I went to Arrow Dude, but you're right. It's Sickle Dude. Okay, Sickle Dude. That's very interesting. Wow. Okay, hand and implement look like peasant, right? Looks like dirt on the hand and arm. Worn wooden handle of sickle, maybe bronze blade of sickle, and not in excellent condition. This is a sickle that's been used, right? But then we get golden belt.
Yeah, look at that sickle. It's like that doesn't even look like a recognizable metal.
Yeah.
It looks like a slice of bone almost, but. Yeah, and then a very formal, printed, symbolic belt.
Yes.
And a rich blue. We haven't had much of that. The merchant
with another color inside. Look at that. See how there's like that orange? It's like blue on the outside and orange on the inside. It's a quilted, like double-sided
Oh wait, what are you looking at?
So the right-hand side, where you can see the blue edge, the right-hand blue edge, and then inside the blue edge of it looks like there's like you can see the opening, and it's like orange on the inside.
I think that's the leather strap coming down from the belt.
Is it? Oh, maybe it is a leather strap hanging in front. It's possible.
Yeah, but either way, I mean.
Okay. Right. Okay. I see.
Detail, though.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Probably. Okay. Right. It could be. Yeah, the fabric is way too nice. Much nicer than the fabric of the peasants we were seeing. And the belt, I mean, obviously, it does look like a female.
Yeah. Looks quite threatening, the stance, doesn't it?
Does.
I mean, we're getting the side-on view, whereas most of the others are full-on facing us.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I wouldn't want to be whoever is standing off to the side here. A bloodletting knife from the human sacrifice stage, Christopher. That's an interesting suggestion. I feel like the sickle is not fancy enough for that. It doesn't look like a ritual implement. With the look at the cracked wood of the handle, right? It doesn't look like a ritual implement to me. Not to mention the fact that these kind of like the outer robe, like the brown robe where you can see all the seams there, does not look like a ceremonial ritual robe either. Like this does not look like evil priestess on her way to the temple. I'm not getting that from her.
Zoom in on the seams too. They're terrible. Like really wide stitching. Like this looks like a
the seams.
Outer coat.
Agreed. Yeah. The entire left half, like sickle, arm, hand, and coat, look like peasant, and then the inner dress, robe, and belt look like upper class. Hang on a second. I'm looking at the design. So look at the two. We got an alternating design, right? We've got the wavy, bulgy thing design, and then again, technical vocabulary. I always slip into that accidentally. And then we've got the bulbous.
I call them the flower thing and the candy thing.
The flower thing and the candy thing. Let's go with that. I'm looking at the flower thing. And I'm looking at the flower thing. Now, I want to just do a quick thing. Hang on a second.
Okay.
Okay, I'm looking at the flower thing carefully. Now I'm remembering the flower thing. Oh, wait, no, this isn't the one I wanted to do through Instagram, where it's easier to find and there's less scrolling. And I want to look at the pictographs. Okay. No, not exactly. It's this Raid Sun thing that it was kind of reminding me of a little bit, the flower. But no. I was hoping for a kind of connection between those symbols on her belt and the pictographs on this scroll or map. But I'm not seeing it.
No.
Oh well. I was hoping it didn't work. Okay, here we can't even see her, but now that's interesting, right? Had I just looked at the Instagram image, which is almost all sickle and no belt at all, I would have said peasant with a blue, skirt in pretty good shape.
Interesting. Right? So that's the bit that they cut. So the important part for them is the sickle, not the belt. Yeah. But the belt's pretty important.
The belt's revealing.
Yeah.
I mean, and by far the oddest thing.
And what's the pouch? If you go back to the Twitter image and zoom in, at the end of the belt, there's a pouch, isn't there, on the very edge?
You don't get it in the Instagram image.
No, it's on the Twitter one.
Oh, on the Twitter one. Over here on the right hand side.
Yeah, on the right hand side.
I think it's a gap. I think that's like background.
Oh, okay.
And I think what we can see is like maybe it's a pouch.
I don't know. You know,
Possible.
I mean,
I thought we were seeing past her there.
I'm thinking more and more that this blue element is like ceremonial. She looks like she's about to commit a ritual sacrifice.
Oh,
I don't know.
that's a really funny idea. I like Boobun's theory. Boobun's theory is he's like, okay, it's Isildur in disguise about to take the fruit from the tree.
Truth.
I don't know. It's fun. Okay, Blackburn says he does think that's background. The thing on the right there. I mean, it does suggest disguise. This is a very rough coat. It's a rough coat. It's a leather coat, right? The coat is made out of leather, not weave. It's
looks very carefully put together,
roughly stitched together. So, you know, the whole like pay no attention to me, I'm just a gardener kind of vibe, right? You know, you could kind of see. Yeah. Yeah. Plausible denial. Amazon has confirmed the identities of none of these people.
None.
Don't let anybody tell you that this is confirmed. And there may be people who are in the leak business whose leaks have confirmed to them that one thing is one or the other, but I never fully trust leak people, and that's not my bag. No. I'm an analysis person, and I actively, I'm full of skepticism about leaks, and I'm not actually interested in leaks at all. Leaks are not fun. Leaks are not fun. Leaks are peeking at the back of the book, which is no fun at all. Anyway, okay. All right.
Yeah, I definitely am with you on the disguise aspect of it.
But I'm still getting, I still think it's a woman's hand.
I do too.
Yeah. Christopher, you're right. Leeks are great for cooking. You know, it's funny that you mentioned that because I am going to be, in fact, cooking potato leek soup this weekend. But no, yeah, I agree. That is a use for leeks. It could be an assassin. It's not subtle, right? Like, I've got a big old sickle and I'm not afraid to use it. It doesn't really say assassin to me, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can see disguise. I definitely can. With the difference between the coat and the robe, I can see disguise. But theory. What we're getting here, maybe not a member of the faithful, right? Like we're getting a glimpse at the latter days of Numenor. Member of the faithful on the run. I can imagine there being a whole thing about Elendo leaving, right? The Akalabeth is a very brief summary, right? It's a very, very shortened story. One of the things that I would really look forward to expanding is the drama of Amandil and Elendil getting the faithful together and getting out in their boats, right? I mean, they're breaking all kinds of rules and laws doing this. I mean, like there would have to almost be like an underground railroad for faithful to get to, to get to Romina on the coast and be able to get on the ships. So yeah, disguised member of the faithful, James. Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm going with. I like that the Isildur taking the fruit theory is fun, but I don't think it's a man's hand. But again, maybe it's a double disguise, right? He's like, I'm dressed as a woman, dressed as a gardener, so that if you penetrate my disguise, I'm still disguised, so you don't know who I am. I don't know, but anyway, okay, all right. Let's do maybe. Okay, hang on. How many more do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good grief. We still have 6. Oh no, we're doing the I'm doing that thing again. I'm doing that thing. I'm blanking on that. What's the Greek name? When you go halfway and then you go halfway and then you go halfway again. Whose thing was that? There's a Greek name attached to that. I can't come up with it. Right? Like if you go first, you go halfway, and then you go halfway of the rest of the Zeno's paradox. Thank you, Neil. I knew it was there. I know. I'm like, that's a Greek name. Zeno's paradox. Yeah. It's like we're doing the Zeno's approach to the character posters. We did the first half the first day, and then we did half the second half the second day. We'll probably do half of the last quarter the next time.
We just enjoy the company so much, Corey. It's just tough.
Exactly.
But we've done 6 tonight. We still have 6 to go.
One more. Because I already zoomed in on this one. So, okay. This is Arrow Guy.
Oh, this one's good.
Arrow Guy.
They're all good. But I looked at this one and gasped a little bit. Because obviously
I'm fascinating.
I'm a huge Green Knight fan. And I'm like, you can't ignore what we've got here imagery-wise.
Yes. Absolutely. So we've got the face, right? Face. And it's not centered, which works really well for the way it's peeking around the edge of the arrow. But if he puts his hand down and we just see the front, it would bother me. Because like you can see the center line of the shirt, right? You can see it. The center line is right there. And it doesn't seem to line up with his nose. Bothers me.
Ooh.
But anyway.
Instagram one, you can't see the green man at all.
Really?
Oh, that's interesting. You see the bottom of his beard, but you don't know it's a beard.
Yeah, wow.
That seems an
just
odd
hand
choice.
and arrow. Yeah, that's a really odd choice. Ooh, look at the belt buckle.
Oh, the belt buckle's good.
The belt buckle. And hang on, we've seen that. We've seen that belt buckle. That's the belt buckle on
the very
attendant
first
guy. Yes.
Yeah.
Orange sleeves. Same belt buckle.
Titles.
Yeah, orange sleeves.
This one's a little bit more detailed. This one has some design in it.
Oh, this guy's Numenorian. I'm pretty sure, because look at the those look almost like the seahorse design on his leather belt, orange sleeves leather belt.
Yeah.
I'm seeing now that I'm getting the seahorse design. These are. Hey, how many certified elves do we have? I was willing to think that one was elvish, maybe, but now I think he's Numenorian. Galadriel. I'm up to 1 elf so far of the ones we've looked at. Galadriel, I think, is the only one I think is definitely an elf of the ones we've seen. I'm not saying, ruling out the possibility that they're elves, but almost all the rest of them, right? So scrolling through the Instagram panel from top to bottom, I'm going, Sauron, probably human, but we don't know anything about that. We don't get enough to be able to really tell culture about the apple dude.
Mm-hmm.
Numenorian soldier. Numenorian noble/servant, high servant, footman, counselor, something, orange sleeves. Numenorian lord, blue and gold dude, Venetian magnate. Numenorian woman with book. Numenorian queen in very fancy shell gown. Numenorian sailor. Probable Middle-earth nomad, older woman. Middle-earth hobbit with map and disturbing chain around neck.
Hobbit.
Right. Hobbit with blackberries, hobbit with acorns, hobbit with, or maybe not hobbit with farming implement, but again, Middle-earth person could easily match, could easily be the spouse of shawl lady. Farming implement dude could be spouse of shawl lady. Numenorian cavalry warrior with horse sword. Some Middle-earth dude, probably with sheepskin coat and sword, which is probably not Turin's. And now this other guy. So yeah, and Galadriel. So like we've gotten, and she's the only one out of order there. Yeah, she's the only elf so far. Wow. Okay. Amazing. So the belt buckle would make him Numenorian. Also the arrow, that Numenorian war bows were like crazy. Now this does not really look like the arrow of a Numenorian war bow necessarily. Those were like steel. I mean, they were hardcore. But yeah, Sarah, we're going to discuss our thoughts on why they did the drop this way. That's going to be in our conclusion, which comes at the end of our discussion, which according to Zeno's paradox will never happen, but we're getting there. We're totally getting there. Okay. All right.
Yeah, with your steel comment, like everything about this guy is natural. You know, there's leather, leather cuffs on his arm. The arrow is wood with string and feather. The belt is leather. The breastplate is wood carved. Yeah,
it does look like a wooden breastplate, doesn't it?
It really does.
I don't know that I've ever seen a wooden breastplate
Doesn't
before.
seem very practical to me.
No, especially not one with relief carvings. Relief.
I suppose it could be like a
see
cast.
What I did there?
You know,
but anyway, it could be a
it
cast.
could be a poured molten metal, but that's not, I don't know, effective
in a
either,
wooden but I mean it's got like the grain lines, right? I mean,
look like wood. Yeah, that'd be one hell of a cast. Yeah,
exactly. This is not John Paul, we've seen oaken shield, right? This is oaken breastplate apparently. And oaken, I mean, well, there's some leaves that look a little oaken. I guess not many of them, but yeah, the whole Green Man face going on there.
Yeah.
With the
and
mustache
the Green Man
and beard.
itself, like how he's framed with the cloak coming just over and the arrow in front of his face. It's like the Green Man himself is the one that's actually the character poking out from underneath that cloak.
Right. Okay. So Christoph is wondering if this could be a Druidon. Possibly. I don't think so. Here's the reason I don't think so. First of all, really elaborate leather belt with metal clasp and everything. It's not quite enough au natural for one of the Druidine for me. The other thing is the stature of the person. We can, even in the Twitter picture, we can see around both sides of his waist, right? Mm-hmm. Which suggests this is a tall, studly guy with slim greyhound hips, right? Which is not...
ginormous hand when you put it like that, you're right.
A ginormous hand and slim greyhound hips. Like, this is not a dude... Probably broad shoulders and slim greyhound hips. That's not how the Droogs are put together. The Druidine are short and wide, not tall and slim. Is it possible it's one of the Nandor? Maybe. I mean, we could get some Nandor here. I see no reason why we couldn't. The brooch that we can just see at the top of the arrow, holding his clasp together. We can't see enough other than to see that it's a brooch, and it looks like... I hear people saying that it looks like a leaf brooch. I think you're thinking leaf brooch because you're used to thinking leaf brooches, because that's what we get in the books and in the film. That looks like a feather to me. The bit that we can see sticking out at the very top of the image looks like a feather on that brooch. Not a leaf. But I mean, I could be wrong, but that's what I'm seeing there. There's chainmail involved. Look at the chainmail. Like in his left armpit.
And it looks very different than the chainmail we've seen on the Galadriel image. It's chunkier.
Much chunkier.
Much chunkier. I don't know about that brooch.
Yeah. And a silver ring on his thumb.
with some sort of etching or carving on it.
Huh. Yeah, some kind of carving. And it's tantalizingly obscured. The edge of the ring is tantalizingly obscured by the arrow shaft. I agree, Phil. It is very floppy chainmail. Floppy is precisely the adjective that captures what I was thinking when I was looking at it as well. Okay. If we assume, howsoever unlikely it seems, that his breastplate is carven wood, and again, relief carving, like the leaf above his right wrist stands out from, it's not like leaves are, the shapes of leaves are, like outlines of leaves are being carved on this, right? Like, this is, it's a 3D wooden breastplate, right?
Yeah, and Sarah says decorative more than functional. I think this is a very functional man. He looks like he...
The dirt on his hands, that's, he looks battle dirty, right?
Ready to use that arrow.
Yeah. This is a guy, he's not for show, right? But that breastplate seems almost impractical, at least weird. I mean, it's weird. It's weird. And he's got the belt. His belt, the design on his belt is not the same as the belt that Orange Sleeves is wearing. It's just woven leather. The belt is more plain. It doesn't have designs on it. Yeah. No, JG from space, I am not at all assuming that these posters represent main characters. I'm not. They might, but I am not assuming that. Some of them, I think, could be designed just to convey atmosphere, culture. Martin, I don't think that face is Treebeard. Treebeard's face is not nearly so human as that, I don't think. I mean, Treebeard looks like a tree. He doesn't have a human head. Treebeard never has a nose like that. Or lips. Do Ents have lips? I don't know if Ents have lips.
It's just so close to the image of the Green Knight that if you just Google image Green Knight, that's what you would see. It just feels very purposeful that it's supposed to be some sort of a... Yeah. This guy, he looks way too human to be an Ent. I mean, again, I don't know how they're going to envision Ents. Are we going to see Ents? I wouldn't be the slightest bit surprised if we saw Ents. Rather hope that we see Ents. Remember, the destruction of the Entwives' gardens chronologically is going to happen in this period. Like, we should see the disappearance of the Entwives, if everything goes according to plan. And yes, James, I agree. Green Man imagery is so old in folklore too. Yeah, no, exactly. I don't think that's an Ent. I mean, I maybe they're going to depict Ents with human heads like that. In which case, I'm going to be critical of that. But I'm not going to believe that until I'm forced to believe that. So yeah, no, I don't think it's an Ent. Who would have a carved wooden I mean, this is fancy work, right? Yeah. I mean, this is, and when I say who, I don't mean what character, because we have no. It's a statement piece. It is. Yeah. It is. It's like this is a guy that walks into court and you go, whoa.
Yeah. I mean, you know who he is now. He might hold court in the woods, like he may well, you could see him as like, I could see one of the captains of the Dunedain wearing something like this.
Mm.
When he's at work, when he's in fancy dress, that is not dressing up like a rascal at Bree. But Numenor, the belt says Numenor to me, Weston, because the belt clasp is just like Orange Sleeves' belt clasp, and I now think that Orange Sleeves is a Numenorian, not an elf. So I do think he's Numenorian. So what would he be? Hunter? Why bow? Again, they had war bows. They were famous for their war bows. But you don't wear a wooden breastplate. Nobody wears a wooden breastplate.
I'm trying to look at the seams on the side. And
Of the breastplate?
Of the breastplate.
Yeah.
And if you look at the very bottom next to the belt, there seems to be like a loop of string, but I think that's affixing the wooden breastplate on. I think it can't be anything other than wood.
I think it's wood.
Yeah.
I think it's wood.
And the ragged edge at the bottom.
Yeah, so do we get Numenorians? It's possible it's an elf. But I don't think so. I think this person's human.
Plug in.
Yeah. Well, we should go soon anyway. This is our last one. Let me go back
tonight.
to Instagram for tonight. Yeah. Huh. Now, there are lots of human cultures. And there are lots of human cultures with Numenorian influences, potentially. Could this guy be from, like, a non-Numenorian Middle-earth culture, like the warrior of a non-Numenorian Middle-earth human culture? Who looted his belt buckle off a dead Numenorian? I don't know, or like whose culture is influenced by them.
We have to assume there's some outcasts in this society. You've got to have some rebels for us to align ourselves with in terms of a story. So, like, maybe this is just some outlier that, Ranger-esque.
Yeah. 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 Chrissy, you're right that Peter Jackson's Treebeard had human elements to his face, but he did not have a face as human as this in proportion. Think of the shape of it, right? For one thing. But besides that, I wasn't a big fan of that either. I thought that Peter Jackson's Treebeard's face looked too human also. Yeah. But again, exactly, Chrissy, the whole shape of this face is a human face. The shape of a human face. Yeah. So no, it's not an ent. It's not an ent. I say that in confidence and hope. It's possible that this is an elf and not a human holding the arrow, I mean. But I'm not sure.
That hand doesn't look like an elf, though, does it?
It doesn't.
Everything else does. I could get on board with that, but I
kinda.
feel like
Yeah. Kinda.
the cloak would be a little bit finer. The hand would be a little bit more delicate.
Yeah. The fineness of the weave of the cloak is pretty good, but yeah. Okay. Well, I'll come back and think about him more when we look at the bigger sort of context and patterns. All right. Yeah, Weston, people who do leaks and confirm things are confirming what their leaks tell them. Not interested. Not interested in leaks. Don't tell me about leaks. Don't care. Don't want to know. Don't care. What we're doing is analysis of what analysis is much more rewarding than leaks.
Yes.
much more rewarding.
And it's a lot of fun. I love the discussion and the let's see, you know, the speculation is half the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
If somebody just tells me, it feels a bit know-it-all, and right now I know nobody's supposed to know it all, so if there's telling me, then meh.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Orifer. Yeah. If it's an elf, it could be. We should get Orifer. You know, Legolas's grandpa dying in the War of the Last Alliance. Sure. Okay. Anyway, all right. We should stop. Let Maggie go to bed, and we'll come back next week at an undisclosed time to finish up. Yeah, we'll do the
I can
first.
pretty much always do this time except Mondays, so you let me know.
We'll do the first half of the last quarter next time, and then we'll be in pretty good shape.
First half of the last quarter.
Yeah, that'll be scheduled.
This is
for
our life now. You guys
Tuesday
wanted us
after...
to talk about other stuff? No.
Exactly.
We only get posters.
All right, awesome. This was great fun. Thank you for joining us today. Thanks, Maggie, for coming along here. Thanks to Hazel for sleeping soundly. And we'll pick this up again next week. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.
Yeah.